going to do some shield building tutorial. So first of all, we need to see what do we want to have the shield for. Like some examples, some look more beat up than others. So we have like, give me a second. The Buhurt variety, or like the HEMA training buckler variety. Need to still do good trim on that, but this thing works out for like soft sparring, Buhurt stuff or pro fight stuff, like proper holding up stuff. That's what we will focus on. What do we need? Of course, we need wood. Like any old regular plywood will do. Like just a big sheet. Linen. Or another fabric like jute. Also pretty much good for that. Jute, linen, stuff to cover the wood later. That's very much important. We will need clamps, like normal woodworking clamps. Totally fine stuff. Get these for cheap in your hardware store. The cheapest ones are totally fine. Don't need to buy the most expensive shit for that. Then you will need, if you want to do like Buhurt shields, if you want to do Buhurt shields with curvature, I suggest you getting yourself some profile aluminium rods. You will also need something to strap the shield onto your arm, like an old belt or something, like a piece of leather, old belt or something to put it on. As hard grips aren't historical, therefore not allowed in Buhurt applications, or like I think also in HEMA applications, you will need leather or like an old belt or something. And you will need a tangled mess of stuff. No, you will need some spanners. The way I do shield stuff, it's pretty simple. It's pretty cheap. I want to cut down on costs if I build shields. So I do the most cheap way imaginable, which I will show you. By the way, this is the perspective you will have of me building the shield. I do not have a lot more space, and I don't need a lot more space. So don't worry, you can do everything I do with hand tools. And before we forget, thickness-wise, I would recommend like getting 0.5 centimeters, so 5 millimeter thick plywood, and do like either 2 or 3 layers of it. 3 layers gives you the best yield. I would use personally for Buhurt, I would use poplar, birch poplar, or like birch on top and then poplar to make it as stable as possible. And just measure out, then mark out how big you need, and then cut the pieces. So we will really quickly cut those. Very important, if you work with fucking power tools or tools at all, keep safety in mind. Like wear gloves, wear eye protection if needed. Like don't just raw dog shit. Be smart about shit. And if you manipulate anything that could hurt you, make sure the fucking power plug is disconnected. As I said, power tools are pretty cool and all, but you really do not need them. So what we have now is 3 pieces of plywood, quasi the same size. Does not matter how big, if they are exactly the same size, that are roughly shield sized. Huh? So, what do? We build a composite material to make it even stronger. So that's what we're gonna do now. We start up with first piece of linen, and we take away two of the sheets, and start with the most low one. We take a wood glue. Apply the glue and everything is nice and tacky. We'll take our linen we pre-cut, or that's big enough to put on. Then we'll put that on. What I do is like put one side over, then what we will do now is when we have it like on here pretty good, because we need another piece of that anyway, because now the other part will come anyway, and you will see it. I don't think you see the bubbles on the video, but when you put it on, you will see like bubbles and folds. You don't want to have them. And when you've done that, do the same exact thing like we did before. But keep in mind that the linen now will soak up a lot of the PVA. Yeah. So you take the wood and you put wood glue on that also, like not as much, cover it a bit, then put it on, so it tacks on it. Now that we have this beautiful 1.5 centimeter thick linen and wood wafer, roughly shield sized, we need to apply pressure. How do we do that? Clamps. The more, the better. Now, before we apply the clamps, we will need to put these on for the step afterwards. The two in the middle are, by the way, helping the bend. Now that we let it dry for a bit, use some spanners and put these on. Now the magic will happen. How to get the fucking bend in the here in the shield? That's way easier with modern plywood and modern wood glue than it would be with historical variants. Also, a word on that: nothing on that shield is historically accurate. Nothing. Like maybe the form factor. Okay, on the finished product, even that one has no quasi historical accurate. What I like to do is connect the spanners in this way, like, and that's what the aluminium U profiles are for. So the spanner does not cut into the side of the wood, because you would just simply break it. And that's how the magic happens, actually. You just now put the spanners on here first. You don't want to have those stuff slipping. Now, the spanners roughly some pieces apart, and now the magic happens. We now slowly, you hear, start bending the whole thing. I suggest you putting it up a bit for that, and then slowly, one click at a time. It helps if you put some pressure in the middle to give it the suggestion in which direction to bend. it takes a bit of strength, so don't worry to break anything. What is going wrong here is that on this side the aluminium is slipping. So what we can try is putting it back on. But what we most likely will need to do is getting the tension off a bit and put the aluminium back on. Better than it is now. Taking off the bendy boys, because they should now have given it the place to bend, and now, yes, now it works out a bit better. Now you need to watch out, because now you see, because we had the other ones first in, we have a bend quasi in the middle. That's not the best case scenario with aluminium, by the way, but we make it work. As I said, it's like not the best version that gives you the best results, but it's the cheapest version. What you don't want to hear is like a cracking sound now, because that means it's breaking, and you don't want that. Like that sound, you don't want to hear that. Let's see. No, it's still okay. What we will do now that we have these on here, off here, we will put them in the middle to secure everything together a bit more. So now everything you need to know is like feeling wise. You feel how the wood works and how the wood behaves in that moment. I can't tell you much more. Thing is, we now have a bend in wood. Perfect. It will go back a bit more when it's dry, or when we release the tension. But as you see, we now have a bend in the wood. What we will now do is leave the whole thing overnight, let it dry, come back tomorrow. Okay then, let's see how that worked out. Yes, so now the moment of truth. Did it work? We'll see. For that, we open up the clamps. Yeah, and then we see right away it stays in that position. It will bend a bit back. What we want to do now is paint the form of the shield that we want to use on there, and then you can take it from scratch. That's what we will do, or you can do like just paint around an old shield. How to construct a fucking shield? Well, it's way easier than most people think. So this one still works, by the way. Didn't check. First of all, you want to find the middle, right? With us now, the middle is the bendy part, middle, like, and then you need something straight to just put it on there. As I said, I will just eyeball it right now, just give you a little concept, and we want to take like a center part where we want to draw our line from. Like, we see the middle of the bend is like right here. Do like how far we can get in and from where we can work. An important thing we want to remember is that we don't want to have sharp edges on the shield. right? And the shield needs to be a bit rounded at the end. Like we will just roughly half it. Half would be 62 centimeters now. 32 centimeters would be right here. We will do 30, or around about a feet in from the distance measurement. We will mark it right here. And mark it across again. As I said, these are just helplines. How do we actually make a good rounding in the back also? As I said, you don't want to have sharp corners. Sharp corners are a hassle to put the linen around. You hold your finger on the middle point you were working with, and then you simply draw while holding the Sharpie straight. I'm going from the back side and finding a sweet spot in the front. Like, I'm measuring from the middle, going about 10 centimeters. Like, take my measurements with a grain of salt. Take your own. So we have 4 inches or 10 centimeters on this side, and then same thing on this side. And now, when we did this, we trace the line from the outside here to the inside there. Now we have the here the shape of the shield we want to have. Same thing now. You have now the corners here, not up there. So you would go again a loop-de-loop, go in here. Now you want to trace, making a fine corner right here. Now, what we did was we put layers in between. So like we used the plywood, which is in it of itself already a composite material, and reinforced it with linen on the inside. We will do that on the outside too. This is like a very important part to realize, and that's what you want to see when you look at it. You want it fully bonded. You don't want to see like hollow parts anywhere. That means it is stable and it will not flex around or delaminate. And yeah, what we don't want to see, like this is actually a little bit of a problem, is this right here. We don't want to see that. We can try to fix that by putting in wood glue and then pressing it together. And then unfortunately it will need to dry again. You can use the outside, you can use the stuff that's still on the outside to like seal up the edge a bit. We fixed the problem. It will need some more time to dry. However, we can put on the next layer. What we'll do now is like doing the same thing how we constructed the core material, but layering two on the outside, one on the inside. So what we will do now is taking the outside. Now, what do we want to do? As I said, we want to do the same thing like we did with the inner core, but now we're using like the jute for the first layer. And now we actually want to have a bit of overlap, like 5 centimeters overlap for the first layer would be absolutely great, like on the inside. 2 centimeters also totally fine. Rather go with 2. What you can do, you can cut the whole piece beforehand, so it is like only 2 centimeters over on all sides. That's what we will do right now, because then it will be actually way better and way easier to glue the inside. Now, same thing as we did before. We will put a lot of wood glue on here. Then we will turn it over, and now we will do the trim and the inside with the wood glue. Same thing here. And yeah, I know I did not center it good. That's why we have like this discrepancy right here, but that's okay. As Bob Ross said, happy little accidents, right? What we want to do now is to really seal the deal, is to put another layer of wood glue all around it. So this is what you get after 2 days of work. Now we have the first layer on. And you will immediately feel that it will feel way better, way stiffer than before. But this is just the first layer. As I said, we will do 3. But first of all, we need to cut and clean up a bit. You will now feel that everything is a bit hardened up and everything is fine. We left like the edges here not really bonded, so we can cut them easier. You can use a knife for that, like just cut everything off you don't want to have, like all this little stuff here. Watch out that you don't cut yourself by doing that. Like really, you simply want to shave off all the stuff you don't want. Don't worry, the little cuts you do on the wood will not break the shield or anything. But by doing so, everything will look way cleaner and nicer in the end. Good enough for the inside layer. Now that we cleaned up the trim a bit, we will now apply some more glue in the middle. Make sure it's like dusted off as good as possible. And then we will take another layer of linen we prepared beforehand. And this time, because it will be seen, we will glue it first and then cut it to size on the outside. We will now continue making this one into a usable shield now. For the straps, it's just base it on how you like it. Like if you want to have the shield close grip, which will impede with your arm harness, and you will most likely need to get an arm harness made for that or fit for that. Or if you want to have some more distance in punching. So you will put your arm where you want to have it, and then basically just simply mark out where you will have enough clearance. That's the rough measurement. What you now want to do is pick one of those sides, and so that it looks symmetrical and it's kinda even. You will measure it out and then put the measure in. So even everything out a bit. Perfection. Good. If you are happy with where you put your marks, time to drill. As easy as is. What you want at hand is the one of the screws you will put in, or rivets, or however you put that thing on, and measure if measure the right size bit. Remember, if you drill something, especially with power tools for home use, the drill bit will not be stable. It will open up the hole a bit. So we are using 6 millimeters, 6 millimeter wide screws for installation of locks. From the outside they look like rivets, and that's what we want to achieve with that. You will see as soon as they are put in. So how we do that? We'll put the leather in soonish. I will show you first how to assemble. You will put one washer, then the leather, a second washer, and then it will put a nut on from the right side. And then you will tighten everything down. So let's start with the lower one. You have two options, by the way, now. You could screw that in and press fit it. I like to screw it on with my own hands, so it's easier to repair on the go. So after we hand tightened everything, we will need to get those sit flush. And that's what you normally would do with a hammer. I just take my Buhurt axe. And you just hammer them flush in. So now you also realize you now can screw and screw and screw because they're a lot deeper in. For that, because I don't like how these things look. And also the acrylic paint we're using is basically another layer of wood glue. Hi folks. So, basics. Last day. Now it's like fully usable, fully workable as a shield already. So you could use it like it is. However, we want to prolong the longevity of it. For that, we will put on leather. I would really love to show you how to cut a leather strip. However, my strip cutter is fucked and I don't have enough leather. So we will reuse from an old shield. Hence, also, it will not hold up fully. However, the steps are the same. I'll show you. What you need is your leather. You will need some tape. You will need some thick yarn. And 2 needles. And of course, you will need a drill. More on that in a second. So we will put that away for a second. Now, what you want to do is put on the leather. Normally you would cut that into size here beforehand. Yada, yada, yada. Now you will center it as much as possible. If you use a fresh, new piece of leather that's never been used before, wet it. So like actually soak it in water. That way it becomes more workable. This piece of leather unfortunately is a bit too short. However, it's not a problem as when you do it correctly, because then you just use the back side as the last point where it would be connecting. However, the back side is where your arm sits, so it will not really have the problem of breakdown or something there. When you have it roughly centered, like this, you will start to tape it on so it does not flinch away. Just use duct tape. I'm using a 2mm drill bit for that. Make sure that it's kind of tight. And then you just... What I'm using now is a waxed thread. This waxed thread will be put through 2 needles. You will need 2 needles for that. Leather needles are perfect. However, I'm just using normal sewing needles right now. You drilled pilot holes, so you will not be needing to push through leather anyway. When you start, we'll go through the first hole in the back, right here, through the wood, back through the leather. And now you should end it up with 1 string on top and one string on the bottom. So, what we will do now is we just change sides until we are finished with the whole rim. We go from the top, through the leather, through the wood, through the leather. Don't be afraid to just go through the wood and through the leather first, and then look on the other side to do it. Do yourself a favor and in between tighten all the strings already. So, when you run out of string, you'll see I did not go through that leather hole right now. That has a reason. So, what we do is what we already did before, is like tighten everything as tight as fucking possible. So everything gets cinched down. Now we will do a knot underneath the leather, like a double knot. Just plain and simple, as tight as possible. Cut off the excess. What you want to do is continue the pattern. And for that, you will go back through the last hole you stitched, like here. So you will have a double layer right here. And this is how you make a fight-ready shield, without spending a fortune on getting the most elaborate workspace ever. So, this concludes our little tutorial on how to make a shield. For every other form, you will do the same stuff. You do not need to bend shields for round shields or something like that. For that, you will need something more. To be quite frank, it's a bit more annoying. If I missed something and you have any questions, ask questions in the comments. I will be there with my private account, and we will also answer over the club's account there. I hope you enjoyed. It was a lot of work for me, and see you next time then.